I had a bad feeling about this. It was freaking justified. Yeah, good times. Just responding to this off the cuff here. The EU copyright directive has indeed been passed. On the plus side, if you're a fan of tyranny, I'm going to read Julia Reda's comments on this immediately after the fact. Julia Reda from the Pirate Party or something like that. She's been pushing against this for a long time. That's Articles 11 and 13. They're basically this close now. Very little will stop it at this point from being completely ratified. I think I've heard later this year. I've also heard January. But anyway, we're months away from the death of the European Union's internet. If you're in the European Union, well, and even if you're not, I mean, this is going to affect everywhere, really, because if you do business in the EU and you're trying to reach EU customers, if I'm trying to reach subscribers there, I don't know how it's going to operate anymore, because this, to me, looks like, I mean, this really looks like the end. This is going to be so unbelievably unworkable. And I just don't think this is bureaucratic incompetence. A lot of people want to say that, hey, this is just some out of touch boomers who don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, I don't know if I buy that. See, I think it's much simpler than that. I think this is a case that the EU has been dealt a blow with Brexit. They're already trying to take away Hungary's voting rights. I saw that on Nigel Farage was saying that. And they are afraid of rising populism and right wing, this and that and the other. Truth is, it's just patriots. Yeah, I'm sure there are some far right people too, but it's just patriots coming out going, I don't recognize my streets anymore. I don't want to live in a radically changed country. I want Sweden to remain Swedish, France to remain French, Britain to remain British, Ireland to remain Irish, and so forth. Italy to remain Italian. And they're looking around and they're going, yeah, I think maybe we've hitched our wagon to the wrong star, and yeah, maybe this isn't a good idea. And I think the EU knows this, and I think they want to control the spread of information online. I mean, that's a fairly basic reading of the situation, but I think it's obvious. They don't want another Brexit. They're keen to hold on to power. At the same time, there's corporate interests in the music industry, for an example, in the movie industry, who've struggled with piracy for years. They look at this as an opportunity as well. So, of course, there's different invested groups. Read what Julia said. Now that Parliament and Council have adopted their positions, we will have one final chance. Yeah, one last chance. One last chance. I feel like we're saying that every time. One last chance to reject hashtag upload filters and hashtag link tax in the final vote on the directive after trilogue, probably in the spring. Talk to your governments meanwhile. I get where you're coming from, Julia, but maybe that's the problem. And this is black pill for me to say that, but considering the EU doesn't respect democracy, democratic will of the people, it's tried to undermine Brexit, it's asked France and Ireland to vote again in referendums. I think the problem is that we talk to our governments, and this is the same with the situation with the threat of regulating social media as public utilities, because all it's really doing is going to the mommy daddy figure of the government and saying, dear Mr. Government Man, can I please do this? We're asking permission too much. We should not have to ask the EU, because the EU shouldn't be involved in this at all. The EU should have zero jurisdiction of the internet. I'm against geo restrictions, so for one, because the internet should span the globe uncensored. But we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be going to them at all. This is the issue, that we're falling into this trap of playing their game based on their rules. So it's like the EU wants this to come to pass. They voted overwhelmingly in favour of 393 to 279 for the upload filters. Sorry, the link tax. The upload filters was 366 to 297. And we're expected to go to our MEP. And look, this was the only strategy that was available to us. That's why I suggested it. But we go to our MEPs and then we say, hey, Mr. MEP, Mr. Member of the European Parliament, I don't know where their allegiances are. I don't know what their loyalties are. They may very well want a nice cushy job in the European Parliament for the rest of their lives. Would you please do this thing for me? It's like they have the levers and the controls of power, and we're expected to go and ask them nicely to not do the thing that they deliberately want to do to control us? What incentive do they have? That's the problem. I mean, we're going to politicians and we're getting political about it, which is fine. But politicians want power more than, I guess, they want freedom in many instances. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to sound like a friggin' anarchist here, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. I just don't I just don't think any of this is going to matter in the long run. I think the only positive you can take out of this, and I'm reaching for a positive here, is that, and I'll get into some of the craziness about this. Now, I've covered it already, so those people who don't know, where have you been, if you don't know the dangers of this directive. But the only real positive I can see is that it will wake up the normies who have been just asleep and not understand. When they turn on their phone someday and they're like, how come I have to pay for this service? How come I can't share this link? How come now, there's a thing in there, like if you've got a small blog, you have to constantly monitor for terrorist content, however that's going to be defined, certain comments that could be in your comment section of your little blog there, 24/7. How are you going to police this? Right, when things become impossible, when you can't access certain content, when you can't access customers because your small business can't operate, when you suddenly have massive fees, linking fees, when you're no longer allowed to engage in transformative fair use, this job that I do here would be impossible because you can't do response videos. And by the way, even the I suppose the deep web, the dark web, the alternative social networks, they're not going to get you out of this, because the issue is going to be the level of copyright legislation, which is going to manifest all across the internet, right? Not just in a few select social network corners. It's going to be everywhere. So the individual who will really be responsible in their own business for whatever it is they're publishing. Larger publishers will have to pay a larger amount, and by looking at YouTube and Facebook and all of these companies as publishers, they're going to be going, we have to pay all this money now, and we have to run these databases. Maybe we just don't operate in these countries anymore because it's going to be too expensive. And this is where we end up with basically an internet that is akin to that of China. I mean, if you want to get worse about it, it could be the internet of North Korea. I think they've got like 600 websites. Yeah, it's basically an intranet site, and they have this operating system in North Korea called Red Star OS. It looks like a kind of a hodgepodge of other operating systems. It kind of looks a little bit like a Mac OS. The years on it, it doesn't go from the Gregorian calendar. The years begin from the birth of the dear leader. So look, anyway, that's an extreme example. I don't think we're going to go down that road, but to be fair, I mean, we're not going to be far off it. If it's a case that the hyperlink itself is largely untenable, and that it comes with terms and conditions for sharing content, for previewing content, for having copyright surrounding the headline of an article, whereby if you have 2 or more consecutive words in it that were used by another publication, they're going to assume that you breached their copyright, even if it was accidental, coincidental, whatever. So I mean, none of this makes the internet workable. And I'm thinking, do I need to emigrate now? I don't know. And like I said before, just because some people are like, hey, we're in Britain, we're going to get out of this, it's not going to affect us. Yes, it will. Of course it will. I mean, that's it. There's going to be large sections of the populace of this planet that are going to effectively not be able to see your content. You're not going to be able to reach them. Of course it'll affect you. Of course it will. And that's why, to his credit, Philip DeFranco made a video saying, obviously there's millions of subscribers he's not going to be able to potentially reach. I want to reach the world with a message. I don't regionalize it. I don't geographically restrict my content to anywhere. I want everyone to see it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I mean, fundamentally, it's going to make things from a legal perspective very difficult to do anything. And of course, this is a massive threat to democracy. It's a threat to freedom of speech. And I know why it's being done. It's obvious why it's being done. And there's a lot of nefarious actors probably involved in making this happen. She just says, Article 13 vote, the European Parliament endorses upload filters for all but the smallest sites and apps. Anything you want to publish will need to be approved by these filters. Perfectly legal content like parodies and memes will be caught in the crosshairs. Yeah. I mean, memes. Anything transformative. The fun and what was great and good and revolutionary, innovative, creative about the web is over. And it dies because of copyright. What do we do now? Build another internet? Why is this necessary? There's nothing wrong with the first one. Tyranny rises really when people do nothing, but mostly when people are sitting there not paying attention. It's like a game of chess where your opponent makes a move that you didn't quite anticipate, and you're like, oh crap, I'm in check. I didn't see that. No, you're not in check. You're in checkmate. It's that slow, steady, incremental, one step forward, two steps back. They wear us down all the time. You're fighting too many opponents at once. Your punches get sloppy. And eventually you just go, oh, I'm tired, I can't take any more. And then that's when they swoop in and take everything. The Parliament will now enter into final negotiations, this is from Julia Reda's blog, with the Council representing the member state governments. Unfortunately, all the concerns by academics, experts and internet users that led to the text being rejected last July still stand. Unless filters are explicitly excluded in the negotiations, public protest will only increase, and the entire directive may very well still be rejected when it comes up to the final vote right before next year's European elections. Maybe, and I do appreciate your optimism there in the face of this another gallant fight, Julia. But what I would say is you can also look at it. They're this close. They know they're this close. They're pushing this thing across the line. They don't have to do very much of anything. We, on the other hand, have now left this to the final hurdle. We've left this right till the very end to try and turn this thing around, which means that we have a much, much bigger task ahead than they do. So that's it. That's the end of the video. I got nothing more to say. I look forward to your comments below. There will be more follow-up on this and fallout from it. Crazy times ahead, but yeah. Rising tyranny. That's how you know you're alive. See you next time.